Chicago Cubs brass actually surprised that Shōta actually accepted his qualifying offer. This front office just keeps blundering after blundering after blundering. But one thing they can't blunder on is the bullpen. And we're going to talk about it on today's episode of Chicago Cubs Central. Let's get to it, y'all. Welcome in, everybody. Yes, sir. Welcome in to another episode of Chicago Cubs Central. Listen, I appreciate each and every last one of you guys that have been tuning in to these episodes, making Chicago Cubs Central your number one spot for all things Chicago Cubs. Listen, I appreciate it so much. Thank you all for liking, sharing, and subscribing. Thank you all for vibing with the content, rocking with your boy, and literally, like I said, getting into conversation with me on the posts, on the messages, on the boards. I appreciate it. It means the world to me. Thank you all so much. If this is your first episode here on Chicago Cubs Central, I hope that you like it, first and foremost. And secondly, I hope that you will like, share, and you will subscribe to the channel. That way you do not miss a single bit of Chicago Cubs Central, because this is your number one spot for all things Chicago Cubs, and I am your host. Now, with that being said, like I said, the Chicago Cubs have often been talked about as an organization that necessarily doesn't always think forward. They're not necessarily always the organization that's leading the path in free agency with how things are done and how money is spent. In fact, Shōta Imanaga and the Chicago Cubs actually are a bit of an anomaly in how the situation went about with them and him accepting his qualifying offer. Now, again, Shōta did not want to the player option that was offered to him, and the Chicago Cubs did not want their option that were open to them for 3 years. So again, both sides declined those options. So then the Chicago Cubs had to make a qualifying offer to Shōta Imanaga. They extended a 1-year, $22.025 million qualifying offer to Shōta Imanaga. And guys, to their apparent surprise, Imanaga accepted it, meaning he'll return to the Chicago Cubs in 2026. We already talked about this part, right? According to reports, the Cubs organization was stunned by his acceptance, meaning expected him to decline and test free agency. To me, y'all, this is one of those things where the organization. I've already done the episode on Shōta. I've done multiple episodes on Shōta already. But this is the part to me where the organization and their blunders frustrate Chicago Cub fans. Just another opportunity for them to make the right decision, and they end up making the wrong decision, or they end up, miscalculating or misgauging something. They expected Shōta Imanaga to decline this qualifying offer and test free agency, and they really thought they were going to get him back on an even better bargain. Well, surprise to them, Shōta Imanaga said, hey, $22 million for 1 year? Sure, I'll pitch that. And after this, if there is a strikeout in 2027, I get to go back to Japan and pitch. And Jed Hoyer and Carter Hawkins are sitting there with egg on their face. Like, damn, he actually accepted the qualifying offer. So now here comes the part that is going to piss off a lot of Cub fans. You cannot use this front office as an excuse to begin to try to go cheap for the rest of free agency. Well, Imanaga accepted his qualifying offer for $22 million. We didn't necessarily calculate that. We thought he would get him for cheaper than that. So that kind of handcuffed us money-wise to be able to spend. And you're not going to send Bruce Levine on all of the televisions shows and all of the outlets and have him vouch for you and say, well, that came to as a bit of a shock to Chicago Cubs brass, and they weren't expecting that. So that's why they went cheaper with everything else. You still need more. Point blank, period. There's no getting around it. There's nothing else to add up with except for you need more. And you know what's crazy enough? This qualifying offer actually gives Imanaga a pay raise versus the option structure that he rejected. It also locks him in for just one more year, meaning he can still hit free agency in 2026, but without the qualifying offer tag next time. For the Cubs, bringing him back is double-edged sword. They retain a proven arm, but some think it makes signing other big pitchers harder if they spent on Imanaga. And that's the part that leads to the shock. But to me, guys, are you not reading the tea leaves? Are you not reading the room? Nobody is feeling sorry for the Chicago Cubs when the Los Angeles Dodgers are out there doing what they're doing, when the Giants are prepared to have a big offseason. Hell, the Pirates are talking about spending money. Cubs, you got to get on the bandwagon. You have to get with the times. You cannot allow the other teams in your division to pass you by. With the addition of Kyle Tucker, with the emergence of PCA, with the steadiness of Seiya Suzuki, you still couldn't get past the Brewers. Cincinnati has a great manager. They're coming. Hunter Green is a force. But Pittsburgh is threatening putting some pieces around Paul Skeens because they want to try to keep him. You cannot afford to slide down by being cheap. You can't afford to miscalculate. That's our issue with the Chicago Cubs front office. You can't afford to keep having these mental blunders where you don't proportionate your money right, and then you end up going cheap in other areas, and it doesn't pan out for you. It's frustrating. It's frustrating that we got a money limit anyways. But it's even more frustrating when you can't even calculate the damn money right. How are we supposed to trust that you guys are going to add good pieces? I don't know. I still am of the mindset the Chicago Cubs should not only the Chicago Cubs should not only be happy that Imanaga is back, but they need to add more. And John Morrissey, MLB insider on the MLB network, believes that they are going to add one more significant high-profile pitcher. Now, I'm telling you, that ain't enough either. You still you got $166 million to spend, or 160, or between 160 and 166 for this season? You have to figure it out, and you got to go get some high-profile pieces that you can depend on all season long. None of this trading for a player like Ryan Presley. None of that type of stuff. None of those type of deals anymore. You got to go and get the sure thing. If you're the Chicago Cubs, you got to go get the sure thing. There's no more time for questioning. Your bullpen needs this more than anything. And that's the main topic of today's episode. We want to talk about the bullpen. So there are bullpen targets that the Chicago Cubs have been linked to. Now, with the reports that the Cubs are potentially targeting bullpen arms, or at least being linked to, Ryan Helsley, Luke Weaver, and Raisel Iglesias are the three names that I want to talk about today. So let's break down who these guys are, what they did in 2025, and how they fit for the Cubs. So Ryan Helsley, his stats, 2025, he's a former Cardinal. His ERA was 4.50. His whip was 154. He had 21 saves. He had 63 strikeouts and 56 innings pitched. If the Cubs signed Helsley, he'd likely be a high leverage reliever or even a candidate to close. He's got that type of pedigree. The risk with him, his 2025 wasn't dominant, but the upside is there. He's had really strong seasons before. So again, this guy was playing for a team that wasn't playing for much halfway through the season last year. So him being able to come to the Chicago Cubs and play for a team that's trying to win something could be a huge motivator for Ryan Helsley. And I would like to see him potentially come and be a piece for the Chicago Cubs. I'm still of the mindset with him, Palencia. I'm also hoping that they end up bringing back Brad Keller, but I mean, the more reports come out about that, the less optimistic I am, because their team's talking about having Brad Keller be a starter again. Like, he's not even going to be a reliever; he's going to be a starter again. Remember, he was the guy who started closing for the Cubs towards the end of last year. But Ryan Helsley is a good piece that could come and really stretch out this Chicago Cubs bullpen. He's somebody who could come and provide you with innings, with support, and be a lockdown, shutdown type of pitcher for you. Another pitcher that the Chicago Cubs might be looking at is Luke Weaver. Luke Weaver's 2025 stats: he was 362 ERA over 64 and 2/3 innings. He had a whip of 1.02. He had 72 strikeouts in 2025. He had a record of 4-4 in 64 games in relief appearances. So Weaver could be a multi-inning setup man or a bridge to the late innings should a starter not be able to go long. His numbers suggest he has had solid control and can be reliable in high leverage, but not necessarily closing work. So when I look at him, I look at him as a piece to bridge the gap. He is somebody that could potentially serve the role. Like, let's just say, God forbid, another Cubs pitcher gets injured. Colin Ray has to go into the starting rotation. Then you look at somebody like a Luke Weaver. He can give you multiple innings and bridge the gap to get you to the high leverage moments. And he's also somebody that can eat up innings. He also has solid control and can pitch multiple innings for you. You can put him in at the 6th inning and the 7th inning, and he's able to get outs for you. So again, he's somebody that will be very, 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 very reminiscent of how the Cubs use Mark Leiter Jr. I liken it to that. Like I said, like you can hand him the ball in the 6th, 7th, maybe even 8th inning, and he can set things up for the closer. He should not be a closer, but he can set things up for the closer, and he can get the Cubs out of tough spots. Again, he's somebody he's somebody that the Chicago Cubs absolutely have their eyes on. So, last but not least, Raisel Iglesias. In 2025, he had a 3.21 ERA over 67 and 30 and a third innings pitched. He had 29 saves in 70 games, 73 strikeouts, a whip of 1. Iglesias is a proven closer and could give the Cubs shutdown late innings. However, signing him might come at a premium, and they need to evaluate their bullpen structure as far as who closes and who sets up. So the Cubs got some decisions to make if they do go out and get somebody like Iglesias. He is a piece that absolutely can provide you a closer option, but the Chicago Cubs then have to paint out the rest of their guys. Who's going to be the setup guy? Who are guys going to eat up 6, 7, 8 innings, for the Chicago Cubs to get you to that closer. But he definitely is somebody that you can depend on. He's somebody I would like to see the Chicago Cubs potentially go after if they whiff on somebody like Fairbanks. So Iglesias is a piece that can come in and be that automatic closer for the Chicago Cubs and somebody that they can trust. So when you look at all of this, the Chicago Cubs, they do retain Imanaga, but they also need to add bullpen depth. Instead of a full rebuild of the pitching staff, they may be going for stability and high leverage firepower. Resigning Imanaga for the $22 million uses a chunk of the budget, but adding Helsley, Weaver, or Iglesias would be smart for them, but it also would take smart allocation. Can we trust this organization to make the smart allocations of the funds? That's the thing. Again, we risk overspending on relievers and hurting our flexibility, but the reward, if we get a strong, reliable bullpen, guys, let me tell you something. Those bullpens, when you got a strong, reliable bullpen, you are damn near unbeatable. I mean, like I said, it would take the superpowers of the Dodgers to beat you if you have a strong, reliable, dependable bullpen. So that's why the Chicago Cubs are looking to put money into this bullpen and really build their bullpen up with hands that can come in and throw really, really good. So this might be a bridge year strategy, but hold the base, make your smart bullpen upgrades, and push for wins while letting your big arms or younger players develop and stabilize. But listen, I need to know from you guys, do any of these pitchers sound like somebody that you want? Ryan Helsley, Luke Weaver, Raisel Iglesias, are any of these pieces that you want to see the Chicago Cubs go out and get? I do believe the Chicago Cubs probably will come away with one of these pieces. I think that Jed Hoyer is putting his best foot forward with the bullpen. Hopefully we can keep Brad Keller. Hopefully we can have Daniel Valencia stay healthy. And like I said, and we move on from there. So listen, I appreciate you guys so much. Make sure you do me a favor. Make sure you like, share, and subscribe to the network so that you never miss a single moment of anything going on with the Chicago Cubs. And thank you for making Chicago Cubs Central your #1 spot for all things Chicago Cubs. Until next time, go Cubs go. Peace.
Thank you for watching another episode of Chicago Cubs Central, the #1 spot for all Chicago Cubs content. Remember to like, share, subscribe for more Cubs content.